as we had very sad news over the weekend, especially for those. Are you a cricket fan, Nick? Is that something a part of your life?
Big cricket fan. Yeah, absolutely. I actually was very lucky enough to work with Shane Warne a couple of years ago, and I was going to be working with him later this year, to be honest. So very, very sad. Yeah, I did a show called the Night Watchman in Australia, and he was one of the guests, and I had to do a show with him in Melbourne, where he is literally a legend. So I remember before the show, we went into the studio, and it was a live studio audience. There was 100 people in the studio, and as it was in Melbourne, he walked in and they said, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shane Warne. And all 100 people unprompted just yelled out, Warney, and then started doing the, like bowing to him. And then I looked at my notes because I was the only Kiwi on the show. And my whole job was to take the mickey out of Shane Warne because they were Australian and they weren't allowed to. So
they weren't allowed to. He's their god.
Yeah, he's their god. And
so I was taking the piss out of Edmund Hillary or something.
Oh, absolutely. And so yeah, I think it's sacrilege and stuff for me to do, for anyone else to do it. But then I was just going, this is not going to go well. But then because he was such a great guy, he was laughing at the jokes, and I was telling him that Daniel Vettori was the greatest spinner in the world, and was showing him clips of Daniel Vettori making 100 and him only getting 99, and it was just, and he took it all in his stride, and he didn't have to. He was such a big legend of the game. He didn't even have to give me the time of the day. But that was him. It was very sad.
Who better to talk to us Kiwis about the legend that was? It's so sad saying that, Shane Warne, than the voice of New Zealand cricket, Bryan Waddle. Bryan Waddle joins us. Good morning, Bryan. Bryan, thanks for giving us some time this morning. Oh, we don't have your mic there, Bryan. So we've got a mic that's missing there. You have a look and see if you can switch that on. I'm just gonna let you see if you can figure that out for a sec, Bryan. I'm just going to take you off. You're still with us, Bryan, but just stay there. And whilst we give Bryan a second or two to see if he can switch his mic on, I do want to do one thing that we were going to do during this as well, which is we all know, those of us who love cricket, about the ball of the century. Yes. And what the ball of the century was and who it is. And here's 60 seconds here, and then we'll go back to Bryan. 60 seconds here with Graham Gooch remembering Shane Warne's ball of the century. Tell me straight away, Nick, if you don't get audio this time, because we should have audio, because I'm not sure why we wouldn't have audio. Here we go.
Let's say that ball coming down, obviously Shane put a lot of revs on the ball, obviously a lot of spin. It sort of drifted in, and that normally happens when you put a lot of revs on the ball. And I think the thing that always still makes me smile a little bit is that Gat's face there. He couldn't believe what had happened. It was just like someone had stolen his lunch at lunchtime in the cricket, to be honest. It was a magnificent ball, and you could say it was a freak, but the guy went on to prove what a great cricketer he was. He lit up the game, and he dominated spin bowling. He brought spin bowling back to life in the 90s and the 2000s, and he's a great entertainer. And I think that's the thing. I think most players, when you talk to the public and they ask you about your career, he would say that he entertained the public, and if they enjoyed watching him play, that was good enough for him.
So there you go, Graham Gooch talking about the ball of the century. And let's go and see if we can connect now again to the commentator of the century, Bryan Waddle. Are you with us now, Bryan?
I've been fiddling with everything.
We have you, sir. Yeah. We have you. And I wasn't going to try one more time, Bryan. So there you go. God loves a trier. That's what they say. And we've got you for one last time. And I think what's happened is me and Nick have basically talked all out our Shane Warne story. So the floor is yours, sir. Shane Warne and the tragedy of his passing over the weekend. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think you need quite a lot longer to get all the Shane Warne stories out there. My one that I remember the most is when he was out for 99 against New Zealand, and that was at Perth. And I brought it up in a function that I was MC, and he didn't too kind to the fact that I commiserated with him for only getting 99, because I think at some stage really harboured the desire to score a Test match 100. It was as though the only thing he hadn't been able to do was score a Test match 100, and he missed out. The worst part about it, I think, for him too, was that when I saw shots after that, years after, it appeared that it was a no ball that had seen him dismissed on 99 as well. And that probably rubbed the salt into the wound even more so. But he was a great cricketer. He was an entertainer. He was larger than life. The game doesn't start and end with Shane Warne, but certainly it loses a lot by not having him as part of the international game. And it really is sad that, and you talked about 52. Goodness, I'm soon to be 52 and I'm a little bit worried when I get there.
Bryan, there are people who come along in sports, and I'm thinking about, like, there's this whole conversation around how Steph Curry has changed the NBA by turning it into a 3-point game, and they come along and they actually change how games were played. And he seems to be one that did, as someone said earlier, bring spinning back. I think it was Graham Gooch in that clip I played, actually, bring spinning back. And maybe not the first, but certainly to bring back the idea of using spin as an attacking weapon rather than let's tie these people down and let the quicks actually knock the wickets over. But with that ball of the century and others like it that we've seen, he seemed to be the generation that the person who changed cricket, and with McGrath at one end and him at the other, both attacking weapons, it was really a brand new way to play cricket.
Yeah, and you make the point of being attacking weapons because that was the way Shane Warne played. He loved the game, but there was no we'll play for a draw or we'll play for a tie or we'll accept a loss. Everything about his game was attacking and trying something different. He was a man who tried something different. That delivery that he got the ball with Gatting was a normal leg spinner, but he had other deliveries. He had the flipper and he had the slider and he had names for all these deliveries. I'm not sure whether they were genuine deliveries or whether he was just playing with people's minds, saying, oh, he's got a special delivery, got to watch out for this. And that was the case that Alex Stewart faced a delivery from him, and he played it defensively and was quite happy to have played it. And he got exactly, or what he thought was exactly the same delivery, and it was the flipper. It just went straight through him, straight past the batting pad and bowled him. And he's still bemused to this day, Alex Stewart, about how that delivery got him out. And that was Shane Warne. He was a real personality. You ever look at photos of him, he's never not smiling. He's always smiling. And that was the way he treated people. And everybody was his friend. He could talk to anybody.
One of the best things I saw with Shane Warne, and it's kind of not related to cricket, he was a character on Kath and Kim. His name on Kath and Kim was Wayne Shawn. And he was Magda Zabrisky's, her character's boyfriend, I think. And one of the best things I've ever seen Shane Warne do is they have the blooper reels and the behind the scenes. I just tried to find it on YouTube because I would have played it, but there's a behind the scenes footage of these most famous in Australia actors and actresses sitting around in Kim's backyard whilst they're not filming, talking to Shane about the flipper, and how he does it. And he explains how he does it. And he explains what he does with his finger and how he kind of pushes it out rather than doing. And then he goes and look at my fingers, and he showed his hand, and the finger that he used for the flipper was like twice the size or significantly larger than the others because he damaged so badly playing that ball. And it's just like, it was amazing to see these, the world famous in Australia actors and actresses sitting around hanging on his every word because of who he was. I think Kath and Kim was filmed in Melbourne as well, if I'm not correct with that. But also hearing him just talk in a very casual setting about how he delivers these balls that devastated the best batsman in the world for such a long time. People should look it up. Kath and Kim, behind the scenes, Shane Warne. It's an amazing clip.
I'll go and have a look see. The interesting thing was he had shoulder surgery and he wasn't quite the same bowler after that. But the surgeons apparently said, how has this guy been able to play cricket and do what he does? Because his shoulder is a mess. And they had to, do the surgery to improve his bowling ability. And, of course, he wasn't able to quite bowl the flipper and some of these other sliders that he'd developed after he'd had that surgery. But still, 708 wickets. Interesting, when they lost the Ashes in 2005, he took 40 wickets in that series. incredible in England. I mean, his facts are phenomenal. And, I look at him, they talk about him being the greatest spin bowler ever. And we use the word greatest quite often, and sometimes rather too liberally. He was the greatest. And my personal thing about that is that I never rated Muralitharan as a bowler because, to my mind, he was a chucker. And therefore, Shane Warne, what he did was natural in terms of the cricket. I don't agree with the way Muralitharan got to his 800 hits. But, each to their own. Warne's still the greatest.
Hey, Bryan, tell us about what you're up to at the moment. I know that you've got a podcast with ZB. If people want to find out more about you and hear the voice of New Zealand cricket on a regular basis, what can they do?
It's on iHeartRadio, and Jeremy Coney and I have podcasts weekly on the front foot, and the Shane Warne will be featuring in this week's edition quite clearly. And of course, we can't forget either that Rodney Marsh also passed away the same day. I have wonderful feelings for Pat Cummins, because in the space of 12 hours, he had to read an obituary from his teammates in Pakistan, preparing for a test match against Pakistan. And he did it with emotion and with feeling. And that's pretty tough to do as part of your preparation of a test match. And it just shows what Shane Warne meant to the world.
Hey, Bryan, I'm glad we stuck with you. I'm glad we and next time we talk to you, we know how to do it straight away. So thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate your insights into the sad news of Shane Warne. I'll certainly be adding your podcast to my list to listen to. It's been lovely to hear your voice again.
Lovely to talk to you guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Bryan.